നമുക്കിവിടെ sunrise പോലും ആയിട്ടില്ല. But I know that for you it's good afternoon. And it might be quite sleepy after lunch, I understand. And it's not fun to hear people talk and talk about themselves. But I think this is such a good idea of what is being organized. The concept of meet the alumni. It's a good idea to understand what your own seniors from your college has done, and it is quite because of the gap, especially in the academic profession, academics, legal academics, and the profession. It is a good idea to understand the journey. Well, when Ruben asked me to do this session, I was thinking, what do I want to tell the young budding lawyers? And I thought about myself, the 20, 21 years. That's when I was doing law at School of Indian Legal Thought. So younger self, what would I want to know? I think that is what was quite surprising to me, because that 20, 21-year-old self is very different from whom I am now. Although Ruben described as quite a fun person, but it is a questionable fact. Um, the the truth is that it has been changing. It has been evolving so much. So I thought that's what I want to tell everyone. The wisdom that I want to share to this young budding lawyers is that accept the fact that it is an ever changing. Be open minded. Be as flexible and as adaptable as possible, because the profession is changing so much. It has been the case, it was and is the case every time. But now, more than ever, it is not about doing, 2020 is the biggest testament of the fact that it is ever changing. Namlaru expect we'll all be in a cubicle sitting there and talking to each other, and I can't see anyone's face. I'm not addressing a class. It feels very strange. So it's always changing. So one needs to be ready. Thank you. Someone put on the camera. Thank you for that. But I think it is about accepting the fact that we need to be changing and adapting to the situation. So 5 years of law school, use that time to know everyone around you, because this is your support system. The people around you are going to be your support system in the future. And these are the people like whom you would call upon tomorrow when you need help. So just enjoy this process while you are there. But of course, prepare yourself for tomorrow. It is not about finishing every assignment, the internal marks, all that matters. Ruben, I didn't say it doesn't matter, but of course, in that process, make sure be ready for the world, which is very different outside from what the campus is. See, when I say about my story or something, when I started, I think my plan was to qualify and practice law, maybe in Bangalore or maybe in Delhi. These were the things that was in my mind. And I thought I'm smart. I had it figured it out. Fast forward 2 years down the line, what Ruben was talking about, the moot court competitions and all of the things, I would strongly recommend all those kind of exposures and experience while you're doing law. So during that time, we got the opportunity to meet a lot of law students from across India, various other law schools. I guess it was an eye opener. I think that told us that normally Chuttangan, the 20, 24 people, that is not it. Well, you have much more in number. We were only 25 in a class, but you have much more in number. But that is not just the world. The world is much bigger. People are preparing so much ahead for their life, not trying to scare you, but it is about the fact that knowing that there are things which we need to know. So preparing or planning ahead. Then I thought, I'm going to start. I'm going to do all possible internships. I'm going to do moot court competition. I started even doing company secretary course, bulk up my CV. That was the plan of action to get the job I want. But yes, while enjoying the process, but still I felt like my focus was on the job that I wanted to get rather than what all things I should have learned and prepared myself for the world outside. It was always about that job at that time. And then I decided to do my LLM and overseas. I thought that will also add value to my CV. It was always about that, the job that I wanted to land. And then I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to do law in University of East Anglia. And that scholarship came through again, about being open about opportunities. It was an essay competition. So I won the essay competition, and then there was a series of interviews. So at the end of it, Thankfully, they said they will pay for my entire education. So it was a good decision. Came over here, and I think it was the first week or so after being here, I had this most life changing moment, as one could call it. We had this scholars reception. I bet, Ruben, you all had that. Once you just go to the law school, they actually take you for the meet the scholars. And I walked in there and I looked around the room. There were people who are 10, 20, 30, 40 years older than me, who has done so much in their life, who has published their own books, running their own law firms. And I felt so humbled. And I am here thinking that I've done it all. I'm here doing my master's, ready to get my dream job, landing it. And it was such a humbling experience. And I felt so grateful. And I thought, I'm not going to miss this. So, legal education is not about landing that job. It is, of course, it is part of the process, but it is about the journey. People are learning many years later. People call it, they do masters after they have done their basic practice and understanding. And I felt like, oh, I was so wrong about everything. I thought it was about completing the course and passing the exam and making my CV more attractive for my employer. And then I think I made up my mind that I want to practice in UK. പക്ഷെ I knew it was an unrealistic target at that time. കാരണം വെച്ചാൽ വിസയില്ലായിരുന്നു, വിസയുമില്ല, എക്സ്പീരിയൻസും ഇല്ല. Who's going to give me a job here? And I didn't even know, and I didn't speak the English they speak. Of course, we all speak English, but let's be honest, my accent is different, and I'm not going to fit in. So, and how is a judge going to understand me? So it was all there. It was all there in my mind, but I wanted to give it a try, and thankfully, I was lucky that I had my partner, who was my boyfriend then, who was my boyfriend from the law school, uh, from SILT, my senior. And he's also my husband now, my business partner. So I was lucky that he was there so we could work between us to find out how to get a visa and how to start working here. And I started sending my CV to every law firm I know and knocking at many doors, but no, didn't get anywhere. The only interview that I landed was with an IT company, and I got that job, thankfully. And that IT company, a strange IT company with no Indians there, because who would have thought an IT company would exist without Indians? But that was as an in-house lawyer. So I was doing all their contracts. So I was there only 6 months, but those 6 months gave me the opportunity to see what was there around, the opportunities, how to qualify in this country, and then moved on to private practice. Again, lucky to get into another city firm in London, and was thrown into the deep end there. The difference between the legal education, just to clarify that, back in India and here, in India, after you do your 5 years of law, you're qualified to practice. But in UK, people complete their legal education and then they have more or less like 2 to 4 years of practical training, like a practical course called LPC, and then a training contract. So everyone whom you meet in another firm is actually someone who has had at least 2 to 4 years of practical experience than you. So they expect you to hit the road running. And I still remember on second week, I started practicing in that firm, joined the firm, I'm training there. They actually sent me to the Royal Courts of Justice, the High Court, as we would call it. I've always seen that beautiful building on videos, and I've always dreamt how it would be inside of it. But I didn't expect to be there on the second week when I didn't even know how to even prepare a bundle for a court hearing. And I still remember my heart beating so loud that I could have numbed the room. And I think the judge kept calling my name as Miss Sugat, Miss Sugat. 15 times he struggled to pronounce my name. I kept telling him, you can call me Deepa, but no, he would still call me with my surname, struggling to pronounce. And maybe that gave me a heads up that life is it's not going to be an easy journey. I'm going to be an outsider and have to find my way somehow here. Fast forward a few more years down, survived, coped. managed, became the head of the corporate commercial team in the firm. Was a good journey. Now I thought, yes, I have the qualification, I have the experience, and above all, a clientele that I could offer. And I was trying to make a move to another firm within the city. Attended interviews at many top 20 firms. Everywhere I would reach the last stage of interview, the HR round, where they would tell me that we are sorry about it. And I couldn't figure out why, because I thought I have so much to offer. And why am I not getting the job? And there I met one of the partners of one firm. This is the next life changing moment I'm talking about. You would have sensed the build up. So that lawyer told me that, oh, it is quite an unusual CV for an overseas lawyer. You might be taking away a lot of opportunities here from other candidates who are qualified here. Then it kind of struck me that people are thinking of me as someone who's coming to take away their opportunities. And I wanted to prove the point that no, I'm not here to take anyone's opportunity. I'm here to create opportunities. Maybe for all of you, maybe some people can qualify and I can actually give you the job. So I was like, no, Anu. So what decided to set up our own firm? We always had this dream of Silk Route Legal, though the name was not decided at that time. We always wanted a firm, but never thought we will have the firm in the city of London at this point of time. We had to bring forward our plan of action, maybe because to prove to everyone that, we are not here to take anyone else's opportunity. All those people who did law with us or did masters here with us had gone back by then. Everyone's plan was they tried themselves, or maybe some people decided it is better to be back in India. But we didn't want to give up. We wanted to prove that point. And then joined with other partners. Was not the best time to make such a move because we were a very young family. By then, I was a mother of a 10-year-old boy, sorry, 10 months old boy. And my husband was working already in another firm in city. So he had to quit his job to set up this firm. So it was a big hit financially and everything that we were doing at that time. But, well, touch wood, God's grace, we just went on from there and it never stopped. We wanted to do something that was different from what other lawyers from our background, that I'm talking about, are Asian lawyers who had set up practice in UK. Because what they all did was to set up maybe what we call as a high street practice, focusing on private client work. We saw that there is a gap in the market where the corporate commercial clients from India or Southeast Asia in general are not getting the service from an ethnic firm. So we decided to fill in that gap and call ourselves that corporate commercial firm. We set shop in the City of London. City of London is just like a square mile. So we decided to set shop there. And now 8 years, 9 years down the line, it's been a good journey so far. Good news is then 2020 happened when we thought it's time to stretch our feet. No, it's 2020 happened. But it's good that we did not have anyone, we did not make anyone redundant, laid off, as we call in India. And we didn't reduce anyone's salary. We have all our staff still with us. So we survived 2020. But let's see whether we will do that for 2021. We're looking forward to it. There were many challenging cases, and I would still not call the journey as I've called reach the destination. Well, Silk Route will be my destination, but the destination, the journey has just begun. The challenges that it presents is to keep it afloat and survive and keep it alive. So yes, did I do it in time? More or less, the journey is ending.
Yes.
Or do you?
You have time. You can go on if you want to.
Or
You
if anyone wants to ask a question, I can take it
Yeah.
from there also.
And
It's
then
not a
yes, we
because
can.
otherwise I can just keep on talking and it'll get a bit boring. Maybe make it a bit interactive.
Yes. Then you can maybe conclude towards the end.
Yeah.
So now we are opening for question and answers, like we always do. If you have a question for Deepa Sugathan, please raise your hands or send me a message in the chat box. I'll unmute you. So please take the opportunity to ask away. based on what she spoke so far, or whatever you want to know from her career and journey so far?
Yeah, of course, because you can ask me on any aspect of, if you want to know about legal education in UK or practicing here or from Indian legal education, whatever I can um, add value to, more than happy to. It's the thing is that I can keep talking, but I sense that it might not be beneficial. You have heard enough stories. Well, more or less, all stories will be going in the same way, that I studied, I qualified, I did this.
Um, Maybe while you are thinking, I can ask a question that I assume that they would be having. Um, when you say you're a dual qualified lawyer, and
Yeah.
did you have to take any bar exam in the UK for what you're doing now?
Yes, I had to qualify here as a solicitor. That is what I've qualified. I had an option to qualify as a barrister too, but I've qualified as a solicitor of England and Wales. What we had to do was we had to give a transition exam at our time. It was about having a certain amount of practice experience in this country and giving an exam.
Mm.
But now it has changed. Now it is something called QLTS. It's called Qualified Lawyers Transfer Test. And what they now do is you have two sets of exams. One is a multiple choice exam and like an entrance exam that you would have given. And then there is a practical kind of an intensive 8 session exams. It's more of a practical side of things. That is how it is. But you have to requalify and you have to pass your exam.
I see.
It was much easier before. I think even before my time, it was just a matter of giving an exam, and people could even give that exam from India.
Oh, I
So
see.
we even now sometimes get CV from people who want to work in Silk Route. Sometimes we get CV about people saying qualified solicitor, but never practiced in UK, because it was okay to be qualified, but not anymore. You need. I believe there are centers in Delhi and Bombay and other places also to give that exam, the
Yes.
first exam, but the second exam happens here in the UK.
Mhm. Yes. Interesting opportunity. Yes. Because of the common law background, also, I think it is. That's why the opportunity for Indian lawyers to qualify that.
Indian lawyers, yes. And I think that really helped, to be honest, because when I was practicing, when you start practicing first, the contracts law and the IP, everything which you learned, you are
Mhm.
studying the case laws from the UK courts while you're studying in India.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that kind of gives you an advantage over other European lawyers
Yeah.
who are here. So it's kind of gives you that advantage.
Yes.
Systems are quite similar from India. I would say the legal system is very much similar. The laws are quite much mirroring each other at times. And I think Indian legal system quite derived from the UK. But I
Mhm.
felt the difference is about mostly the implementation side of things. The time factor, that sometimes the Indian courts take a much longer time compared to that of UK courts. And also from a contracts, for example, in India, the contracts have to be on a stamp paper. In UK, it can be on a white paper. So, there are certain procedural and other aspects different.
Okay.
But a funny thing which I noticed is how the Indian drafting and UK drafting is different. In India, we are encouraged to write English in a very complex way. I think maybe it is our obsession to the language. We want to write, the language than Indian contract, other, it's quite different. But Ivada, on the other hand, they encourage simple English, and there is actually a training to draft in simple English, because it is important to make sure that your client understands
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Rather than using the legal
Jargons to
jargon.
confuse
Yeah.
everyone. Yeah. It is about all about your client. And the client rights are very different. When you say as an advocate to someone who's having a quite a free ride, I would say. I mean, I know maybe you, Ruben, and Aarti ma'am might not agree with me, but in India, the accountability to a client is very less. But on the other hand, the compliance takes the first step. So one of the exams that you have to give to convert is professional ethics exam. I know in the legal course in India also you're learning professional ethics. But
Mm.
the one you do here is quite intense, and you mean it, because in the sense that the compliance is very important. To run a law firm here compared to in India, because my dad runs a law firm, he's a lawyer in India. It's so different. For him, it's such an easy way. For me, it is all about compliance, paperwork. You know, Ruben, you had been in Europe too, how it works. Here, everything is about paperwork, compliance, ensuring it. So that is there.
Yes. We have a question from Nivedita. Nivedita, you can ask it yourself. She dropped in the chat box, but you can unmute, start your video, and ask it directly. Make use of this opportunity. You can directly ask. Nivedita? Yes.
Uh, Good afternoon, ma'am. I just want to ask you this: like, you done your degree in SILT, right?
Yes.
So you have practiced, or you learned Indian law during your this 5 year.
Yes.
Then you're practicing in UK. So, is there a problem? Like, even though there are similarities, it's completely different, right? Like the Indian law, the British law, it's different. It's two different constitutions, right? So,
Yes.
like for them in that country, is it a problem for them? Like, it won't be a problem. I really got confused at that point because the other ma'am,
Jibin.
Jubin, okay, she's working there, and I had that doubt at that time also. Like, you're putting the practice of UK or the British law, so this Indian law thing, it won't be a problem.
Well, I think rather than a problem, it is different. As you rightly said, the constitution is different and the whole make of it and the structure is different. But there is a lot of similarities, which kind of gives you the basic idea of the structure. For example, as I was saying, the contract law is the same. We know that what constitutes a contract and things like that. The basic concept is the same because it is based on common law. So, but you have to do a lot of learning. And I felt that was the biggest challenge. Just by writing an exam to convert your qualification does not make you qualified to practice in this country. So, for example, in my case, I could have given my exam and qualified as a solicitor, maybe in 2006, the year I was started practicing here. But I didn't. I actually practiced for a few years before deciding whether I want to assume that title or not. Mainly because the title has a meaning, isn't it? When you call yourself after 5 years an Indian advocate, it's because you studied the Indian law, completed the Indian legals, understood the Indian legal system, completed the requirement to be qualified as an Indian advocate. So before calling myself as a solicitor, I thought I want to have the practice experience. So it was a challenge. What you studied and what you practice, there is a disparity. But that is when you do your on the job training. So I gave myself that 4 years or so, I believe, yeah, 3 or 4 years to practice and to get used to the system before I would call myself with that title. And still there are problems in some areas. I must admit that when I say I work in corporate commercial, I don't do so much of property transactions, for example. That is one area where I felt there is so much difference between Indian law and UK law, because Land Act, um, I'm just going to struggle with the Indian acts now. So
Property.
so all of that, what we studied in law school, I didn't get much time to practice in India. I practiced only for like a few months, I would say. Less than a year I practiced in India. So I didn't get a chance to practice the property law. But the same way, I don't think you can practice property straight away in UK. We have staff who are trained in property law who does it, but I don't do it personally because I struggle to understand the nitty-gritties of it. Sometimes, for example, is the tax law, what you studied, and there are a lot of provisions which you can't just pick up in practice. Some of the things you need to sit and go back and take a course on. And I actually took a course on some aspect of tax law so that I can use it in my corporate restructuring work. So you do continued education. And that is another thing, Nivedita, what we have in UK is continued professional development. It's called CPD. So every year you're expected to have 16 points. That is 16 hours of taking a legal education course. So all of that helped me in transitioning my Indian legal education to the UK legal education.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And I'm also telling you that the Zoom, it takes a lot of data, and if there are multiple number of this video, if it's on, it takes too much of data. That's why the students are keeping it on off. So please
Ah,
don't mind
okay.
it.
Ah, okay. No, I can imagine this online session of education, Ruben. You might also be facing the challenge, isn't it?
Yes,
Right there.
definitely.
Huh?
I was almost done with the online legal education with the first semester I completed online. It is,
Yeah.
I believe it is very, very ineffective because you can't interact. And I personally don't take classes on Google Meet because there
Mm.
is no control on the participants. And I have no access. I prefer Zoom personally
Ah,
to Google Meet, but then it is just like talking into a screen, and you don't get any response. You don't know actually if they understood it or so. The interactions is limited. Plus, like Nivedita mentioned, the digital divide is very, very high.
yeah.
We cannot make sure that all the students are getting what we are offering them. So I don't
Ah,
personally do live classes.
yeah.
I pre-record my sessions and I upload it on YouTube or Google Drive so that whenever they have access to data, they can download or watch the sessions. So only that is
Ah,
practically possible.
yeah. Because I'm having a young student here. My son
Hmm.
has started the live session yesterday. Until in the previous lockdown, we had to tutor them. So I have learned that I have a teacher. I'm not a teacher. I don't have a tutor in me. So we were printing out documents and making him do, or sometimes online. Now, yesterday onwards, they're having online session, and it is quite strange to have your child trying to communicate and raising his hands and unmuting it and trying to say that. And he thinks it's fun. He changes his background 15 times, and he thinks it's cool. But I bet he's not listening to a word the teacher is saying.
Yeah, 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 and
And we had court hearing on Zoom.
yeah.
So that was quite a challenging one. And the judge, halfway through, in the middle of the cross examination, the judge actually said, "Oh, it has been 1 hour on screen. It's time for everyone to take a break because it's against health and safety policy." And you can't cut you off like that. So yeah, it was a challenge. You were going to ask me something, Ruben?
No, I was just going to add to it that
Yeah.
it is also access to gadgets that they have been
Mm.
restricted from using so far, and then suddenly they have access to internet, phone, laptop, and parents won't restrict also. Now they have to study, so
Yeah.
a lot of distractions can also happen that way. And
Yeah.
now everything is unlimited, data unlimited, so
I've
it is,
heard
it
from
is
my
very
nephews and nieces who are browsing during the lessons. So I bet there are a few here who would actually be browsing now. No, I was just kidding. But I think I hope it all comes back to face-to-face lesson, because that is the most beautiful part of the professional education, the law school.
yes.
Um, the things you learn and the things you wish you could unlearn. So there are the time to make all the errors and trials and errors to get you prepared for the world outside. So because Ruben told me not to tell all his stories on this Zoom call, so I will not.
You can tell some stories if you want. No,
No, I was
no
just
one.
kidding.
Yeah.
But Ruben and I had gone for one of the mood court competitions together, and it was a very beautiful experience, isn't it? And we learned a lot of things more than what we would have learned in that semester in the classrooms, isn't it, Ruben?
Yes.
And we met with a lot of people, and while we were there, the preparations taken by many other teams was an eye opener.
Yes.
And of course,
Humbling
we
experience. Yeah.
yeah, and
How
we
much
ended up being
completed.
locked out of our accommodation for an overnight too, with the whole team was locked out. Five of us, four of us, five of us,
Five, five.
five of us. Yeah, we were
Kiran was
out.
also there. Yeah.
Yeah, Kiran was there. Yeah,
Mm.
five of us was locked out for an entire night. So we learned how to survive a night in a city without sleeping, without getting out, and staying safe
On the Marina Beach. Yeah.
on the Marina Beach. Yeah, some of the lessons are very valuable, lifesaver for the future journey to make.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, more questions. if any? I would like to add or no, clarify what you just mentioned about Nivedita's question. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mhm.
I think it is an advantage for students from the common law background, only for whom this opportunity is given. I believe that, like in Canada, um, Indian lawyers are qualified to sit for the bar exam, provided you qualify an equivalency exam. They have an equivalency exam, and they will evaluate your Indian law degree and decide what extra courses you need to take. And then you need to take only those extra courses like property law, taxation law, administrative
Mhm.
law, six
Mhm.
courses. And then you sit for the bar exam, and then you qualify and you can practice. But like you said, even then, you are not a Canadian qualified lawyer per se. But in Netherlands, or many of the European countries, you are not allowed to practice law. For you to practice law, you have to undergo the undergraduate law degree there, the bachelor law degree, and only then you can practice there, plus the language.
True. I think the language point is very relevant. And yes, you are right. It's the people from students from common law background who are given the opportunity to do the qualified lawyer transfer test. But for example, in Dubai, if you take, you don't need anything to qualify or requalify to practice. You can set up a practice there, but you cannot appear in the courts or even complete a transaction. You can be a transaction lawyer, but you can't sign off on certain kind of transactions.
Oh, yes.
So I think it is because of the UK, India common law background, and we have lawyers from New Zealand, Australia, similar background, who can qualify. Even many African countries who can qualify here. But European lawyers have something called registered European lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
Until few days back, though, we Brexited. So pre-Brexit, European lawyers could come and practice here, but not many do as such because of the language issue. I think people from India, Sri Lanka, I believe, and Pakistan might be quite in an advantage because our language, our not first language, but our education is in English.
Yes.
So we are quite, in advantage to come and set shop or practice here. But just quite qualifying is one part of it, but actually practicing is yet another challenge. The question which Nivedita asked as well about how did you, the bridging the gap between the Indian education, being able to service your client. In few years, you will be learning your professional ethics. The first point is always act in the best interest of your client. So before acting on a matter, you need to ask yourself, are you best placed to do that or not? So sometimes your own answer is no, because there are aspects or certain aspects of law are involved in that transaction or involved in that matter that you really do not have first-hand experience in. So then you are obliged to say no. So it is important to bring yourself up to speed and do as many courses to bridge that gap.
Yes.
Yeah. And that is the thing with education and practice, right?
Yes.
You can educate yourself, you can qualify, but about practicing, one need to have the practical knowledge. You can get it only on an on-the-job training.
True. Yeah. Thank you. We have Vasudev with a question. Vasudev.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yeah.
You're audible. Yes. Hi, Vasudev.
I was actually wondering about your work, your experience at Silk Route.
Silk Route, well.
Yes, the cases like.
You want me to give an example of a case or just in general?
Yes, a general and a specific point.
Okay. In general, as a firm, we provide the whole spectrum of commercial legal services, what we call it. We have a lot of companies as our clients. So we do work ranging from when a company wants to come to UK, for example, incorporating a company in UK, setting up their corporate structure, that is shareholders agreement or investment agreement, whether they want to do a merger or an acquisition in UK. So however they come to UK. And then there would also be something from an immigration perspective, corporate immigration. They might want to get people on board and other things. And then also the commercial aspects where they enter into contracts, whether they enter into transactions in this country, that aspect of it. We have a lot of clients from UK as well. It's not just the overseas clients that we have. I believe it's a fair balance of 50-50, I would say, or maybe 60-40. And then we also have a team that deals with dispute resolution and all other ongoing work, which comes as a journey of a company. Business would go through various aspects. So all of that. We don't do much private client work per se, other than immigration, where we do some private client work. And another private client work which we do sometimes, some of these directors or shareholders in a company having certain personal aspects, something like a family law or a probate or exceptional things from the Indian diaspora or the Asian diaspora in this country. We do that. Well, to give an example of the nature of work, well, every year I have different stories to say, because every year you come across more and more challenging cases. But I think 2020 was a year of contrast, I would say. I'll give you two. You asked me for one, I'm going to give you two. So,
Okay.
Because there's no other way to say it, the contrast. So one work which we did was for a sports team, which was a cricket team. We represented a cricket team who played for Lanka Premier League. We represented Jaffna Stallions, and it was a very exciting journey because a few months back there was this tender. We did the tender, we got a franchise. That is our client. When I say we, I'm so passionate that I consider myself involved with my client. So we got the tender and we had a franchise. Was not sure because of COVID whether the transaction will go ahead or not. Bidding for the players, preparing the player draft, fighting for the players, and doing so many things in certain jurisdictions to get the players whom we want. It was really exciting, and our client won the league. But the cherry on the icing was we completed the investment with the boys from Microsoft. So I'm talking about Satya Nadella and others who invested into Jaffna Stallion. So completing a company which started off as a 1 million, ending the investment round at the end of the transaction as a 10 million company. It was a beautiful experience. It was so exciting and thrilling. On the other hand, at the same time, while we are doing this, we had another client who was a 6-year-old client of ours. But the client is almost 100 years old as a company. They are a very traditional British company, the factory. And in this COVID times, because of cash flow, they had bailiffs outside locking up the factory, which means job loss for a lot of people there. And this man, he's in his 70s, he locked himself up in the room. And he wouldn't come out when the bailiffs were outside trying to take hold of the possession of the factory. He was inside. We worked from morning till evening, negotiating with the creditors, trying to come to a conclusion. And by, I think, 8 p.m. or something, we got the guy out of the room and completed it. So it was a very painful, one side is excitement and growth, and the other side is about conventional businesses going down and what you can do to save them. And later today at 11 o'clock, I'm having the continuation of that. There is the next bit of the negotiation hearing. Let's see what happens. But yeah, so that's a contrast of work sometimes that we do. But it is exciting. That's what you sign up to be as a lawyer to do, which I believe all of you would be looking forward to do. And I'm sure all of you will be doing to helping people. And of course, making money in the process, which is very important.
Yes, ma'am. Both the cases are very interesting to hear. I hope I... Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Vasudev.
Thank you, Vasudev. I don't see any more questions or hands. So I think we'll wrap it up unless you want to make any concluding remarks.
Well, I think over a bit of this in between the conversation, I myself forgot where I started. Lawyers love to talk and forget why they talk. But well, that's not something you should learn. That's all wrong. Lawyers don't. But what I was trying to tell in the beginning, that is the message I want to conclude with. Keep an open mind. Don't. There is always different kind of opportunity. The profession has evolved so much. It's no longer the black robes, what you call, or you conventional concept of a lawyer. The profession has taken various shapes, and each identity of it is as critical as the other. And I think challenging but rewarding in the true sense. So keep an open mind to the opportunities that could come. As a joke, I had said that I want to practice in London, but I didn't, I was not planning for it, but it happened over the course. But I guess it is because it is changing. And if you can grab those changing opportunities, that's it. That would be it. So enjoy your journey, enjoy your college life as much as possible. It's unfortunate that I could not see any of the in person to say this, but enjoy your campus life, play the politics, play everything. I mean, I don't know whether this politics in campus still, but play all, play all you want, all kind of politics, the real and the unreal. But at the same time, don't lose focus on why you're there. It is the journey. It is to the experiences that you would gain there, which will make you survive the rest of your journey. And hopefully, maybe we all will cross paths at some point of time in our journeys. Good luck.
Excellent. Thank you. And I couldn't have offered a more realistic session for them. Thank you for being very real and transparent about who you are. That's the real spirit of the person that you are, and I appreciate for being very honest and being very straight with them. And it was very encouraging to personally listen to your journey. Although I've been in touch, it was interesting to hear what went through your life while you were there, while you left, after you left School of Indian Legal Thought, and while you were there. So it was very encouraging for me as well. So thank you for taking time. I know it is a very busy time for you as well. So thank you very much for taking time to speak to us. And we had a very interesting session. And I'm sure, like you said, this can be a motivating factor for, even if it is for one student. I think the endeavor is successful that in that way. Like maybe it is your one word that came from you that would have given a dream for one of the student that they can pursue. So let's hope all the best for all the students, and best wishes for Silk Route in this new year. Convey my regards to Max and the boy.
Will do.
Yes.
Take care. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you. Take care,
Bye.
everyone.
Nice day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.